welcome. It is our first event in 11th British International Film Festival. First year we have online version of the festival due to the pandemic, but I'm very glad we have a very rich program this year and the wonderful films to watch and some special events like this one today. I would like to welcome Agata Darlasi, scriptwriter, coach mentor, and she's the head of the leader of our masterclass today with Yannis Tsechelidis. And we are honored from New York. 𝘂𝗶𝗱𝗁 Bardos, professor from Teach University. He's here with us. What a surprise, Karl. I was not expecting you. So probably after the session, you will have some questions, and I think the discussion will be very interesting.
More than welcome.
Yes, I would like, and some other participants are here from the festival. Enrique from Spain. I mean, here at Zoom, and probably they watch us on Facebook. I'm going to check in a while, and if there are some questions, you can write them, and I'm going to forward them to our speakers. I would like to say a few things about Agatha. It's an honor that she accepted to have this session today. She's an educational curator of several festivals in the screenplay section. Her talks, workshops, and masterclasses have been presented in film festivals and various events in cities around Europe. She gave a TED Talk in TEDxAthens, and now she collaborates with TEDxAthens as a storytelling speakers coach. She created the Storytelling Gene, an online platform for research and application of different storytelling techniques, where she offers her services and she develops educational workshops that have been presented in various institutions. So we are very honored that Agata is with us, Agata Darlasi, and last but not least, Yannis Tsechelidis. Yannis Tsechelidis is not a professor, he's not a teacher, he's a nuclear doctor. But he's in love with the world of theater and writing. And so with Agata, they prepare something very interesting, a very interesting far-sighted chat about the differences of a script for a movie or a play for a theater. And of course, 𝘂𝗶𝗱𝗁 Bardos, there are 3, 4, 5 pages of CV about him. He introduced 25 or 30 courses in filmmaking in the New York Teach University, and he's the founder of the smartphone humanitarian, I like that, award and festival with lovely dear friends like Princess Angelique Monet, and also in Indian. I saw that you introduced this before in India many years ago. So it is an honor that you join this session, Karl, from New York. So
well,
I would like, Yannis, the stage is yours.
Also to thank you for the invitation. It's a pleasure to be here, and good luck first day for the opening of the festival, to have a really nice go, even on this digital setting. It's not the same, obviously. It's nothing like a dark room to watch a movie, obviously, but I'm sure that you're doing your best, and it's going to be a very big, very good festival. Thank you, Carl, for being here. It's an honor to have you in our participants. I don't know if Yannis wants to say something.
Yes, I would like also to say that I'm feeling very honored to participate to the procedures of this festival, especially in participating to this special session with Agata. And I would like to thank again Mrs. Terzi that invited us to do this interesting, to talk on this interesting topic.
The honor is mine and ours, I'm sure.
But actually, our story starts like that. Starts with, as you said, with the love of Ioannis for writing, playwriting, and he developed now to another medium, to the medium of cinema.
Yes, because my very first experience with Agatha was when I first met her in Brussels, but it was just an intuition, participating by curiosity at that time to one of her seminars. And then I was working by myself on my stage plays. And I was wondering what was going wrong. And I said to myself, I better contact someone from the professional world to tell me and help me how I can really improve my writing. And it was Agatha that opened and not only opened a huge door, not just a window, to a totally new world, being already inside the theater. And after our first collaboration, we were very honored to receive an award, actually the first prize in a Greek London Film Festival. And then we were trying to work on another idea, actually based to the very first stage play I had written by myself. And I continued not understanding why it couldn't function on stage. And actually, I had seen that there were some words in terms of dialogue, which is very important, that were missing from the test. Actually, I couldn't provoke, I couldn't generate dialogue. And it was Agatha that told me, do you think that your idea is better a screenplay, a screen? Yeah, it's better for cinema and not for theater. And I was not very positive in the beginning, but eventually we started working on that.
And actually, for starting over also, this is, let's say that our collaboration, which happens very often I work with a writer that he's a playwright or a screenwriter, and he crosses over to the other medium, also for the experimentation and for the learning process, because they are quite different screenplays from playwrights, but at the same time they have to offer so much more for the craft. So for starting over, let's say that, you know, the art of dramatic writing requires a decision of always of which medium is the best choice to your story, to tell your story. And it is very important to understand how to choose between these. Let's say that what I'm always saying, and we have a long discussion about that with Ioannis, is that, you know, think of writing a play and writing a script as addressing two different senses. Plays primarily focus on what you hear, while films tell a story by what you actually see. Okay, obviously character development, the story and structure all applies to both. But in general, when you're writing a play, you have to think of the audience as eavesdropping on the characters. when we're writing a screenplay, on the other hand, you have a visual medium. So this medium gives you actually offers no limitation, except of the budget, obviously. Budget is always a limitation. So actually you can, through the movies, you can take your audience, let's say, into the outer space, if you like. And it's very easy to make believe that this is a story that is really happening.
Yes, and not only to take the audience to the space, we can pretend in theater that we can take them to the space, but we need to define the space in theater and to make it one place. This is one of the highly qualified, high qualities actually in theatrical plays. Whereas in cinema, it is the opposite. We need maybe more places, more time periods. And on the other side, in theater, we need one place, the less possible at least, and in a very specific period of time, in the morning, 1 day, 2 days, or very, the shorter, the better for theater.
Mm-hmm.
This is a very big difference in between these two kind of expression of art. And not only that, I think that by definition, going to the theater, I mean, not only the text by itself, but going to the theater, even the professionals on stage and people that go to the theater, go to see a performance, to watch, or to see a performance. We both make a convention saying that what is gonna happen is fake. Nobody is dying, nobody is in love with the other one, and but at the same time we accept it. We know that this is what is happening is absolutely fake. Okay, in cinema also nobody will get killed, but at the same time we are absolutely persuaded that they are victims. For example, I mean that we're trying to go closer to the reality better, maybe.
Well, yes, actually, what you mentioned now is that in theater you cannot look real, no matter how much you try, let's say. In theater, people are very, very, very aware that there is a stage and there are actors up there. Brecht called this the alienation effect. Brecht thought the mistake was trying to make it look real in theater because the audience already knew it was fake. Mm-hmm. So by playing with this, talking about the alienation effect, that we already take the condition that everything we accept, that in theater everything is fake, let's say, it's very different from the screenplays, because in screenplays, in movies, we are actually trying to make it all look real. We're saying, when we're writing about the universe, either it is something realistic, let's say the city of Athens, or we are in the outer space, or we are talking about the universe of a sci-fi movie, you must know all the rules that they apply to this specific universe. And you have to show me that you know the rules by the image, by how everything moves around. If the cars, let's say, are flying, or they're going underwater, or they just there are no cars around. In theater, let's say, you can get over with much less. You don't need actually to persuade me that you know everything that is happening in the universe of your story. We just need to know exactly what is happening on that exactly moment of the story that we are there. And that's why the audiences of theater, they are much familiar and comfortable with the metaphor than in filmmaking audiences, or than the filmmaking audiences. Let's say that the tolerance for metaphor versus the pragmatic content in plays and screenplays. This is another really important difference between plays and screenplays. I could go on and talk to you about how this happens, because exactly screenwriting is a newer art form, and playwright has been around forever. Just think of ancient Greeks who invented the theater. Obviously, when they started, it wasn't like, let's do absurd theater, or let's do expressionism. They just wanted to share the stories, the knowledge. But as the years goes by, people got familiar. Let's say that we have it in our collective conscious that in theater, we enter with this condition that, yes, everything is fake, but no matter what, I'm going to experience the story. In cinema, we are not so tolerant of the metaphor, even though if we know, again, as Yannis said before, that obviously they are actors, and obviously is make-believe. It's not the real world, what we are experiencing in the screen. At the same time, though, what is happening always, either in theater and in cinema, when we're experiencing the narrative effect, when we're actually drawn to the story and we care for the heroes and we weep for them and we shout to them to be careful, this obviously happens in both mediums, but in cinema, we want to think that what is happening is real. We want to be more persuaded about what is happening. And this adds up to the work you need to be done in a screenplay.
And not only to work, but even to yes, actually to work, because this will give us the product, the final product, which is there definitely for the cinema. We have the film based on the script, and the film is there forever. But in theater, what is here forever is the text, is the stage play, and the performance. The performance is actually will be different in terms of different approach from the director point of view, from the skills and the competencies of the actors on stage. And not only that, at the same time, from night to night, maybe for the same kind of presentation, from night to night, the performance will be modified by different parameters. For instance, the way that the people on stage feel in between them, the way that they interact with the people in the audience, because, you know, it's the human energy that will circle that moves in the theater. And this is a very, very important, or one more very important difference in between the two kind of scripts, because talking about the product, the theatrical performances, the theater generally is supposed to be a stillborn art. It means that it dies at the time that it is getting born, which is not true at all for the cinema, because, as I said, film is there forever. In theater, the text is here forever.
At the same time, though, even as you said, and it's obvious, it's the text in the playwright is, let's say, as you said, it lasts forever. We can read now Tennessee Williams texts that we can still watch them, obviously, in stage, but you cannot find easily to read a screenplay of The Godfather, for example, a classic movie, unless if you are studying cinema, in that case, and screenwriting. In that case, yes, obviously you're searching and you can find the screenplays, but not for fun, for work. Yes. And that is because, you know, the screenplay is a blueprint. There are so many people. It's the function of the craft. There are so many people, so many teams that they have actually to communicate through the screenplay. And you don't have also the rehearsals. That's another amazing element that you have in play, in theater. In theater, first of all, yes, it is much more intuitive. The writing, the procedure of writing a play instead of screenplay that is much more technical. It's like, you know, for a screenplay, you have to communicate everything through the writing stuff. So through your writing, you have to communicate your intention, the intention of your characters, the laws of the universe, as we said before, the plot and the subplots and where they are going, the conflicts, the resolution, everything you have to communicate. There must be nothing to be questionable. In theater, sorry.
It means that at the same time, you don't have to be just the writer, but maybe the director too.
Mm-hmm. You mean it's better?
I mean, in cinema.
Yes.
Going for the text, you're not just writing your ideas and in dialogue. You just have to see how the camera will go.
In cinema, you mean?
Yeah.
Yeah, but that's the thing. Let's say that that's why we're saying that seeing the sense of seeing, it's the most important sense for cinema, for the screenplays. But talking about the rehearsal, you know, you have a text in theater that you can rehearse. You can rehearse again and again.
Mm-hmm.
You find that everything works out as it should be. Either you direct it or not. It's the same process.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Instead, in cinema, even if you're the director of your screenplay, you wrote the screenplay and you want to direct it, at the same time, as soon as you pass to the role of directing your screenplay, you must be, let's say, faithful to your role. You must direct. You're not the writer anymore. You must to analyze, break down the screenplay and see it with a new perspective, from a new perspective.
Mm-hmm.
If you want to add on to the screenplay. So this is why screenplays, we're saying in plays, for example, in theater, you can go on with the first draft or the second draft and do a round reading of your play with your actors and director and see what is working, what doesn't working, what fits, doesn't fit, and rewrite again if you want, if there is need to. In cinema, though, you don't have this luxury. In screenplays, you don't have the luxury of trying your material again and again. So what do? You can send it to the other people to read it and give you feedback, which means that they must see in their mental screen the whole movie.
Mm-hmm.
So for that reason, you must, let's say that in screenplay, up to arrive to the shooting draft, you maybe have written at least 10 different drafts. So much more work to put everything together.
And in a different format.
In a completely different, yeah. Don't let me start on that. You can talk about format.
Yes, actually, I can say that, first of all, that in theater nowadays we have broken, let's say, the rules. Not actually nowadays, but there are two or maybe 3 centuries that we've already broken the rules, starting with the new trend at that era that was finally named as absurd theater, just because it didn't follow the format of the classic stage plays, 5 stages with this and those elements. And now we do what we want, whatever we want, with no matter how many sections we want, we name them not definitely as stage, but we can say image 1 or I don't know what, according to the inspiration of the writer. Whereas in cinema, it is much more strict. The format is there, and I think you cannot really touch it. You have to follow it and
obey the rules.
Obey, actually. That's the word. That's the word. That's the term. Yeah.
Exactly. It's a specific font, maybe a couple of fonts that we're allowed to write on, the number of the letters, the distances of the paragraphs, and from the description to the dialogues. And that's why there are so many programs now out there that you can find online, even for free, or with some small submission that they help you. Actually, they have everything structured, and they help you with the structure of how it is being written. So imagine that when I used to teach in first-time writers, screenwriters, people that want to write a script, I remember that I had 2 lessons actually talking about the format, why we use this kind of format, why we need it, with a lot of examples from screenplays, obviously, just for the structure of the text. In theater, when somebody comes and say, I have this idea, I would like to develop it in a theatrical play, all I'm saying, okay, start writing. There is nothing else to do there. You just start writing. It's much more intuitive, the whole process. And as I like to say, you heard me repeat myself many times, writing for theater is like opening an onion. There are layers, under layers, under layers, and under layers. And this is how you are approaching actually theatrical playing. You start writing, and there you start finding your characters and their needs and their irritations and what's going next and what brings you to the next scene, and go on. In cinema, in screenwriting, you never start to write your first draft if you haven't done all the work that there is needed to be done ahead of writing the first draft. There is so many things that you have to take in consideration and analyze prior, that actually, you can, if you have done this work before, you can write your first draft in 3-4 days. And we're talking for 100 pages, at least 90 to 120 pages, if we're talking about for a fiction movie. But before that, if you haven't done your research, your development of your characters, the arc of your story, if you haven't done all that work before, and the subplots, obviously, then you cannot start. Then when you are in the middle of the process, you will fall short. You will find yourself that you don't know how to go on with your story. And there are so many loose ends in the process if you haven't done the preparation work before, the development of the story. But apart from that, something else that for me it's really, really important to say, and I think it's really important for everybody to understand the difference, is that in theater, the most powerful structural element is the entrance and the exit on the scene, on the stage.
That's for sure.
Can you understand why? Can you tell us why?
Why the entrance and the exit are the most important? Because the entrance, you mean the introduction of the characters. You introduce
the entrance and the exit of the actor, of any actor on the stage.
Okay, because it brings something. It brings his world with him. Whatever he was doing before, we need to understand his world, where he belongs to, and where he's going to, and what actions will be done, maybe out of the stage, out of the world of the theatrical universe, let's say, that is the stage, but they will probably influence the story and what will happen.
Yeah, actually, exactly. Every time somebody enters in a play, it is going to change the whole balance of the scene. The scene will never be the same. And when someone exits from the stage, again, the scene will never be the same. Again, the balance of the scene has changed completely. Instead, in screenwriting, on the other hand, our most powerful element of structure is the cut.
Yes, this is an element we cannot have anyway on stage, because we have the whole bodies of other heroes on stage. We cannot focus on the knee or I don't know, the small thing here in the nail or whatever. It could be really of value in cinema, because there is no way to have it in theater. I mean, it's something that it has not. It is its nature that lacks of this this characteristic. It's like being born with blue eyes or black eyes. You know, even if you put the eyelashes, your eyes will continue being black. We know that it is fake. Whereas in cinema, yes, you definitely need to do that, and to give tension and emotion and pretend something. Again, describing something like a very specific move that is showing that someone is getting nervous or is very sad. In theater, you can, in cinema, you can show it by having something like a cut here in the eyes, for instance.
Yeah, talking about the screenplay, though, not actually on how we shoot it, how the screenplay communicate the cut and how it uses the cut as really the most powerful element that we have in screenwriting. You know, you don't have to say, you don't have to write close shot on Agata, let's say, or reverse angle to Yannis. Okay, just. You don't just say as well that Agata John is talking. Okay, you have to actually capture it in a way that allows the reader to visualize exactly what is happening between us. So you might say, Agata's fingernails click on her keyboard. Okay, or Agata's perfectly polished fingernails click on the keyboard. Okay, which means that by writing this way, the reader can actually visualize Agata's fingernails writing, clicking on the keyboard. Okay, you can actually see it. You can see how you can went from to a wide shot or to a close shot, and you don't even have to write it, just by describing. Actually focusing my attention to what I want to show. That's why we describe everything with action and with image. If I want to say, for example, Agata throws the chair across the room, okay, we just went from a close-up to the master shot to show how Agata throws the chair to the other side of the room. And you can see that every single one of those shots advance the story. That's why you're writing in pieces and you're using the cut inside the scene, not just at the end of the scene when you're writing fade out or just cut. inside each scene, every phrase, every description of the action, it is another cut. And this is so much more important because in theater, in a theatrical play, you cannot do so.
No.
In theatrical play, you can just say that Agata is writing and then she throws a chair. But as you said before, the audience will see me sitting, writing, and then I'm upset and I'm throwing the chair to the other side of the room. But they can never go and see how I'm writing, how my nails are, if my nails are painted and polished or they are cracked, which it is an element, it shows something about my psychological status, the psychological status of the heroine, her nervousness. In theater, you have to communicate all these details through the dialogue.
Yeah, and to understand how the action can be based on the dialogue, because in theater you cannot always say that she does that, or and Agatha does that, and Yannis reacts like that. We understand the reactions because based on the dialogue, based on what they are saying. And that's what we're doing in rehearsals, as you said, in theater, though we definitely need them. And I think that another difference, talking about, I'm trying to get advantage from the example that you've given. If we are in the cinema, we definitely need a real room. That Agatha is writing and has a chair and these things and all these books. In theater, we need just one table and a chair, and this is it. And we all understand that she is in her room, maybe in her professional office. That's why it continues being a convention. And
Agata,
it's not...
sorry, there is a question from Professor Karl Bartos. Is the pandemic going to make lasting changes in theater and film? What is your opinion?
Well, actually, I'm afraid so, yes. As a matter of fact, for the moment, we experienced that, cinema, the whole production obviously changed. It is like everything in the world right now. But we're still seeing that the production keeps going on. They're still shooting movies, at least here in Greece, how we experience it. We're still shooting movies, shooting TV series. But you can see, because of the unknown, we don't know what's going to happen in the next month. We cannot actually start big productions right now everywhere. So everybody, what they're suggesting is to go on with small productions that they need, like theatrical productions that they need inside interior locations, and not to go outside, not traveling a lot. So let's say that I'm not talking obviously about the big productions, big studios. I'm talking about independent productions. Everybody's starting to shoot in their own locations, and location they can easily have access. Theater, on the other hand, this period is maybe the worst period known for the theater, because you cannot watch a theatrical, I don't know if you try, but you cannot actually watch a theatrical play from this screen. You cannot watch a movie.
But of course it's not the same feeling, because one of the
it has nothing to do.
Values of theater is that it is alive. You are there, you're participating, even if you understand or not, if it is conscious or not, you participate as audience to the final product of the stage, even if the people understand it or not, even if they're interested in it or they're absolutely indifferent as an audience, they do have an impact to the professionals on stage.
I have to share an experience I had in Poland some years ago. We've been to the theater it was a small production, kind of Broadway production in Krakow, and we watched that this play written from a young playwright that it was so funny. So we understand nothing because neither myself or my husband speak Polish, but we felt the energy of the audience and we laughed, and we actually more or less understood the whole story, even though we didn't grasp even one word. Okay, so because I started following that director, that he was a playwright and director, he sent me on the first lockdown. He put the play on theater on YouTube, sorry, and he sent me the invitation to watch it because he knew that I really enjoyed that play. I couldn't do that, and it was subtitled. It was subtitled. Finally, I could understand what was going on, and I was so bored. Not because the play was not good; it was the same production. It was excellent, but here you cannot watch play. I mean, as Yannis said, you can watch it for, I don't know, educational purposes, maybe.
But you know what? There are always exceptions. There are always exceptions. When you see, for instance, but definitely it's not the same experience. That's for sure. Even if it is enjoyable, because of the high quality of the performance, the experience, you do not experience the same thing as if you were there. And I can talk about the Trojan women of Theodoros Terzopoulos in Delphi some years ago, that was delivered for free several times. Each time I see it, I cannot relax myself after the performance, after what I see on screen. And I'm wondering, if only I could, I wonder what my feeling would be if I could have been there.
But can I ask you something, because I haven't watched that? How is it shot, that performance? Is it shot with one stable camera, or there are moving cameras and cuts between the action?
I think that it was the second. I cannot provide you many information from technical point of view because I'm not aware of them. But if I can really understand that they were very open.
Different angles.
Yes.
Exactly. The only way for theater to work on this condition is if it is shotted as a film. So there you use the cut to help me enter into the character, into the tension, and add on to that element of theater that is, it has to be alive.
Yeah. I was thinking about that, and thank you for mentioning Agata, because now in Greece we see more and more theaters that are streaming. They do performances live and they sell tickets, and this is very promising that these people are going to be paid for what they do. I would like to ask Professor Karl Bartos, how's the situation in New York about theaters now?
Actually, I'm not in New York. I'm in Florida. I'm at New York University teaching, but because of the pandemic, I escaped to my apartment in a vacation home in Florida.
When did you move?
I'm hiding from the virus in Florida.
I see.
Good for you.
But also Florida, how is the theater situation there?
But I think it's a worldwide phenomenon that I think it never happened in the history of mankind.
Yes.
The civilization shut down all around the world because of a virus, but at the same time is pushing us into more into the direction that was starting even before the pandemic, and that's the new formats like streaming that is affecting movie theaters anyway, and to a large extent right now, even theaters. So I am actually wondering whether because of this, we may have new forms of delivery of film and video, definitely, but it might even affect the theater, because
Definitely.
there is something very interesting in having actors going on stage without an audience, and they perform the play, but people, as you said it, Petra, they are paying money just to see that, but they see that in a different form. And the question is whether this different form would have any impact and effect on how theater and films are actually made. That's another interesting question. But in the foreseeable future, I don't know how they can sustain, for instance, a theater if they cannot allow people to go in there. If we are lucky, then maybe less than 50% can come in. Can they sustain the theater as is? Same for the movies. As we know, like AMC shut down. Now, a friend of mine just made a film that was acquired, and they are releasing it, what's called virtual cinema chain. So what happens with that, they put the name of the company on it. Let's say it's a big name, like let's say 𝘂𝗶𝘁𝗄𝗃 Corporation.
Okay.
And people would have to pay in money in advance to see it streaming online. So that's a whole different new form. And before the pandemic, there was an interesting development when you could rent a theater, a famous theater, if you could get together maybe 80 to 100 people, you could rent the theater and watch films that you wanted to watch. So that's another, that happened before the pandemic. But all of these, that's why I asked the question of you, are going to impact a theater and film the way we know it.
Yeah, and probably the way of writing. It is mentioned before. For instance, I know how I can write a script for the cinema, and because I'm a director too, and I make some points as regards the camera positions. So probably now the theatrical, the playwright has to mention or has to think about that, because the theatrical play is going to be recorded in order to be streamed online. So maybe the playwrights, what is your opinion, Agata?
No, I think it could happen. I mean, from someone like you, like Yannis, that you are familiar with both structure, the craft, you can, you know, do a combination, as you said. But I don't know if this is going to be like what's going to happen from now on. For sure, we are living in very, how to say?
Interesting period.
Interesting times. Yes, thank you. That I will remind you what would happen with film when we start having the digital. So, you know, with all of us old school romantics, we are thinking, and maybe still something, that the cinema as we knew it is, you know, it was the end of an era, because now everybody can shoot a movie even with a smartphone. They don't need equipment, they don't need the DOP, they can do everything by themselves. And they can, I mean, we have seen a lot of festivals, really good movies made with a smartphone with a crew of 5 people. And this transition, we are still in this transition of DIY cinema. Now, because of the pandemic, I think we're in another transition that maybe, as you very well mentioned, both of you, we will see a combination of theater and cinema. Theater that to work, it must be shot as a movie. So it must be handled as a movie and not as a theatrical play, even though it is written as a play, talking for the classic ones, for example. So I don't know, I'm really curious myself. We are living a huge transition everywhere, especially in our sector. And we are inside of it, so it's so difficult to predict anything, but definitely will change everything. I have so many friends, professionals, professional actors, theatrical actors or directors, that they start experimenting with the mediums they have in hand, cameras, smartphones, Zoom, to make a kind of, to express themselves, to make their own movies, to make, try to experiment, something that they never done that before. And some of them, it's interesting, actually, what is coming out. I'm very interested to see all this flow, where it's going to take us.
Will you put yourself in this concept that maybe I have to write this that way because it will not be in a theater with audience live, but it will be streamed? Will you put yourself in this position?
I think I could try. I could try, but I think Yannis is the.
For me, I think it would be difficult to think of it, because as a playwright, I'm interested in the dialogues, as we've already said, and how I will say what is happening on stage based on the dialogue. It is not my job to say how people or a director will record a stage performance. If it is so, I think it's going to be maybe a newborn or a new expression or a new version of theater generally, and an evolution, a revolution maybe. But I think it's really too early to say that, because this is the pandemic. We are living the pandemic. We've already started seeing the light at the end of the tunnel, because of the vaccinations that have already started. And we are all hoping to go back to the reality as we all consider it to be. Of course, it's going to be a totally new reality, because the people that do have the power in their hands, they will try to take advantage of what has already happened during the pandemic time. But I think that it will be the subject of the theatrical plays, but not the way that the theatrical plays will be written.
No, but I think we already have some indications, even before the pandemic, about how to combine theater and film, and that's called virtual reality. In virtual reality, what happens, we are going back to the beginning of film. At the very beginning of film, we didn't have cuts, we didn't have separate shots. It was just one proscenium shot, and people entered and left the frame, and there were no cuts whatsoever. What's happening in virtual reality, we are losing the major elements on the film director's job, which is angle, shot size. These are dissolved. That's given back to the person who is experiencing it, almost like in, and I'm so glad we're talking about that here, because it's a Greek context. It's a Greek context, in my opinion, to go back to the Greek theater in a way that we lost the space, the spatial relation. Now it's in virtual reality, it's given back to the viewer, because the viewer decides where to look, what to see, the angle, the view, and there is no, you know, like shots cut out like that. It's a merge of theater and film in a new form. And I think because of the pandemic, it will get more and more popular. I'm not saying, and I'm praying, it does not replace the theater and film experience, but certainly develops a new experience, a new element. And I was so glad that you brought up the smartphone, because I'm one of the international pioneers who introduced cell phone cinema. I'm teaching it at New York University as a course, that the cell phone is also a new platform where you can do that. And the reason that James Cameron loves the cell phone, because if you do 3D and you look at on the cell phone on 3D, you don't need glasses. And so there are these new developments now that I think the pandemic gives them a boost, but they are coming in anyway. So we might heading toward an option that is a combination of theater and film put together.
Yeah, totally agree.
I think that probably the cinema will be more influenced by this tension, because I think that cinema generally is a kind of art which is based in the technical technology, whereas theater is rather corporal, let's say. So I think that theater will continue having his paternal, maternal characteristics, and maybe cinema is more open in this kind of trends, let's say, because they have not already been established.
Yeah. Ioannis, in my opinion, I think technology is going to to offer solutions. New softwares will come up that everybody will be in another place of the planet, will perform, and a director will moderate from a camera everywhere. And the software will do the zoom or the angles, or so. Yeah, maybe it's a new era, and technology is going to offer a lot. This is my feeling.
Maybe.
And we, as we always be in need of stories, no matter how we narrate them. For what I'm definitely sure is that we will always be in need of watching the drama of the story of other human beings in front of us, either live or in virtual reality, or in the same experience of a black room watching a movie. No matter how, we will be there, both creating and witnessing, I think.
Thank you, Agata. I have a question as regards the story, and when we are going to have an idea for a film, but maybe it's for a theater. My question is, we have to think in the future, we have to think something innovative, something that it's not be told, has not been told yet, or we can think more classic things, like family stories, like relationships. What is your opinion to write, to have a successful or an interesting story to be done a theater or a movie.
Okay.
I always have this in my mind.
This in mind,
what I'm
yeah.
going to develop, what kind of idea.
Mm-hmm. For me, the answer is very easy, and it's only one. What you want to watch. What is that really triggers you as an audience to watch? What kind of movie you would love to watch in cinema or in theater? What kind of story you would be thrilled and you could pay whatever amount of a ticket to be there and watch it? This is the story you need to write. And then yes.
What we need to write is what we want to write. What our intention is.
This is different.
We need to follow our feeling, what we want to talk about. And this is the only direction that will make us be absolutely sincere, which is the first bet. We can bet on it, sincerity. This is what we definitely need. And if you do not talk about things that really concern you, and you have experienced or not, you can get the knowledge and the information by searching, you will be fake finally. And I think it's not going to be successful. I think that, I mean that the goal should be what you want to talk about, not how your idea will be successful. This is another thing. If you know what you want to talk about, then you go to the professionals. You can get directed and being following the mentoring of their brains and experience, and the success will come.
Thank you, both of you. Yeah, it's the perfect combination. What I want to see and what I want to talk about. Yeah,
exactly. Definitely.
We have a few minutes left. I don't see questions from Facebook. I checked. We have viewers. So would you like to add something before we end this discussion?
One thing we haven't talked about is whether the idea is character-driven or action-driven.
Plot-driven.
Okay. Yes,
Plot-driven.
please.
And
yeah,
I think that theater is rather character-driven, whereas cinema is plot-driven more. And Agatha is the pioneer to talk about that.
Okay.
Yeah, no, it's as you said, there is not so many things to analyze. It's much more obviously in cinema as well. We need to develop our characters, but as we said, in cinema we show, we don't tell. Instead, in theater is the contrary. So it's much more character driven. All the stories. This is, let's say, the basic rule. Obviously, there are exceptions, but the basic rule, even from ancient Greek theater, the tragedy and the comedy, they are always character-driven stories. Instead, in cinema, we obviously have also a lot of really nice movies, character-driven movies, but mainly we are plot-driven. We write plot-driven. So this is something to ask yourself when you have an idea. Either you are destined for movies, to become a movie, or to be in theater, a part of the pandemic, the situation we already discussed. So you have to ask yourself about the conflict of your hero, for example.
Internal or external.
If it is internal or external. If you want to develop more the dialogues, and it is most based on your characters than if it is more based on a plot, because in a movie everything can happen too fast. In stage, in theater, it's like everything goes slower, because as you said before, of the one room. I mean, the condition of being on stage, of not having a lot of sets, because actually you have to change the sets. So it's easier to stay in one or two locations. So you have to ask yourself about these questions. And I'm always considering, as I said before, because I love it and I can talk hours about the cut and the use of the cut. It's a completely different way to narrate the same story, the same exactly story in cinema and in stage because of the cut.
Because of the cut, I didn't understand well. The cut?
The use of the cut in screenplays.
Of editing.
Not of editing, of how you're writing. How you're writing when you're writing, as the example I gave before. When you're writing for a screenplay, you, in everything, every action, on your descriptions can be a cut. This is the power that a camera gives you as a writer, to use the possibility to cut and to direct my attention to the details I want to show. Instead, in theater, it's more about how you express all the themes you want to express.
And of course, it doesn't mean that if you put more dialogue in a cinema, you're not permitted to do it. Look what Woody Allen does, for example. You know, the films are full of dialogues, but we're talking about more generally, let's say, about the differences between the two kind of approach in a text or an idea before it becomes a text.
Okay. Professor, would you like to add something before we end our chat?
About what?
Would you like to add something? Do you write something these days for a movie?
You mean to sum up my opinion?
Yes, it would be nice.
Well, like to make comment about the entire festival, right?
I like the comment you did before that everything starts from Greek ancient theater, Aristotelis theories, and yeah, I like what you mentioned before about that.
I think it's tremendous that you have in this festival such elevated theoretical discussions about all the state of affairs of theater, of writing, script writing, and also of film on a very high level of theory. And it's very helpful. I might say it's a little bit also unusual, but I congratulate on that because it is something that you don't really see many festivals, but that elevates the whole event a great deal. And then, you know, discussing like the options of the future, as well as this may have an impact on how we are going to make theater and film.
Mm-hmm.
That's my opinion, because without, you know, whenever you talk about theory, it always will have an impact on practice. So all the theoretical discussions are most likely will have an impact on the actual making of film and theater. That's why, but most often people don't pay attention to this very important interplay between theory and practice. Mm-hmm. I think that's the significance of what has been just happening here. And then I congratulate you to have like introduce this interaction between theory and practice that is so important, but overlooked.
Thank you, Carl. we're concerned about the festival. I mean, we want to be done. We want to have inspiration, and we want to do some networking, and we want to go on. The festival, our lives, our professions, arts, first of all. So that's why we are here, and you are here. Thank you so much from Florida. So I'm very honored that both of you were here today with this discussion and knowledge that you shared with us about theater and cinema and writing and ideas, exchange of ideas, the dialogue. Always, it's very important. Yeah. But also, yeah, Yannis mentioned that it's not, sometimes films have no dialogue, they have to express otherwise. So I'm very impressed about you, and we can have a last word, all of us, and celebrate the beginning of the festival. Agata?
Okay, sticking to the theme that we're discussing, and this is something that I always love to say, think about how you want your audience to experience your story. On stage, on widescreen, on internet, and just do it. Don't stop creating. And thank you for the invitation.
Thank you. Yannis?
Me, I would like to say just keep on having intuitions and put them down, because they will fly away. And if you do have the ideas and you have a list, you will definitely make them a story, no matter if it is a stage play or a screenplay.
Excellent. And Professor, a last word from you? Or we had it already. Professor, would you like to end this session?
Well, thank you so much for giving me the opportunity to be here, and I look forward to more of the events in this festival. This is my first time that I'm invited to participate here, and I'm delighted. I think this is really starting off, you might say, with a big bang.
Yes, we will be every night, 8 o'clock Greek time, every evening we will be here, meeting the directors of the festivals. On Sunday, we have 2 sessions at 6 o'clock with the director of the film Tenderness, 𝘂𝗍𝗄𝗯𝘀. And at 8 o'clock, it will be an interesting meeting with Women in Film and Television, the president of the international organization, 𝘂𝗽𝗱𝗁, the president of Greece, Women in Film and Television. It's 3 years now, 4 years old. I mean, the chapter, and we established now in Cyprus, Women in Film and Television. So we'll have woman power on Sunday. So thank you very much, everybody. Christo, thank you very much that you were here with us, the operator of Zoom. And let's be in touch. Let's be together every night.